Hello everyone, welcome. Today I want to talk about resentment. Resentment is probably one of the most important topics that you could hear talked about, and you don't hear it talked about very much. Maybe there's a reason for it, but let's talk about it right now. What is resentment? Resentment is something that you can feel in your head. It's hard to describe. But it's not the kind of emotion that you feel down below, like when you get angry or hateful or afraid. It's an emotion that's in your head. And so I think it's very close to the soul, very close to your mind, very close to your soul. It's more of a mind emotion than it is a body emotion. You know, after you're resentful, then of course other emotions can rise. Many other symptoms can rise, but the beginning of it is resentment. What is resentment? It's the emotion of becoming. But it's the emotion of becoming something not good. It's the emotion of becoming sick, diseased, troubled, disturbed, and every other bad thing that you can think of. It's the emotion of becoming sick, diseased, troubled, and disturbed, and then it's the emotion that ushers in death. That's what resentment is. So now you see now that you know what it is, you know it's not the harmless little thing that everybody thinks it is. Emotion literally is the cause of sickness and disease and rottenness and trouble that befalls the human race, because it separates us from our powers. And it is the resentment that ushers in an evolutionary process of decay and deterioration. Resentment, another way of saying it, is that resentment tempts you to become like what you hate. I want you to think, if you can, or imagine, that somebody does something to you. Let me try to think of a simple example. Somebody calls you a jerk. They call you a stupid jerk. And they say it with a sneer and with contempt on their face, and they say, "You stupid jerk." And immediately what? Most likely you become resentful. But what is the temptation there? The temptation is to say to them what they said to you, to do to them what they did to you, to do even more bad to them than they did to you, or to become just like them, doing to them and to others just like they did to you. Do you see the temptation to become like? So I want you to remember that. It's the temptation to become just like what you hate. Now, it's the emotion of becoming. When you resent, it's like a switch. It's like a switch, emotional switch. One moment, you're happy-go-lucky, carefree, and innocent, and to some extent loving in that you're not hating, and then something tempts you to become resentful. And immediately you become, see, there's the word become. You become what? You become dark, morbid, negative, resistant, and you also begin to feel inferior, don't you? Because resentment is inferior. But also, you are resentful you are inferior to what you resented. See, human beings were meant to overcome. Human beings were meant to triumph. That's right. Originally, humans were to rule the earth and be ruled by God. We were not meant to be subject to disease and to famine and to war and to untoward circumstances. We were meant to be above it. We were meant to triumph over anything untoward. Do you understand? So, in the Bible it says, overcome evil. Christ said, resist not evil. And Paul says, overcome evil with good. So we are to overcome. Christ overcame everything. Everything that was thrown at him, he overcame. And then he even overcame death. He overcame it all. And that's what humans are supposed to do. So if you follow Christ, if you identify with him, if you identify him as the Son of God, and you take on him, then you take on his suffering, but you also take on his brightness. You take on his way of seeing things, and you become a true human being, and you triumph. But now what? Now you are subject to everything, because resentment is subjectivity, and it's then in the subjectivity, it's the emotion of becoming sick, becoming dark, becoming morbid, becoming depressed, becoming angry, becoming inferior, becoming a failure. And then, in this failing state, this dark state, this morbid state, this state of deterioration that leads to death, in this state then you compensate. So you put on airs, you try to act nice, you gather a bunch of knowledge, you try to accumulate things, you try to accumulate the praise and worship and approval of other people. It's all compensation. Do you understand? So now do you see that it's the emotion of also a failure, of failing to triumph, failing to express the good. See, if you do not bring forth the good and express the good, then you are overcome, you resent, you become subject to, and then you fail. So one of the most important things you can do is to give up resentment. See it for what it is. Let it go. Don't resent. Don't hate. Let it pass. See it rising. Let it go. Don't fall for the temptation of resentment. Let it go. See, there must be some kind of a mechanism for human beings to deteriorate, to fall from the bright nature that they were meant to have, and to live forever, to fall and deteriorate and become animal and then die. There must be a mechanism. It has something to do with the mind. It has something to do with your attitude, and then your emotions. And there has to be a mechanism. One moment you're a bright-natured human being that will live forever, filled with love and light and wisdom and understanding and joy. And the next moment you're negative, you're morbid, you're depressed, you're angry, you're wanting to get even, you're wanting to become like the one that did something to you. You want to do to them as they did to you. There has to be a kind of a switch, and the switch is resentment. Now you have control over that switch. Here's the thing. You do have control over it. You don't have to throw the switch. You don't have to become resentful. You can stand back and watch it. Bear the pain. If they call you a jerk, bear the little bit of pain. It's not so bad. Bear the little bit of pain. Let it pass. But don't hate the other person. Don't resent the other person. Don't try to get even. Don't fall to the temptation of becoming like them and then doing unto them what they did to you, or turning around and doing unto another what they did to you. You understand? It's a switch. Over that switch, You have control. You don't have to hate. You don't have to resent. So watch, become aware. Get the little meditation that I have so you can be very aware. And when these moments rise and there's a temptation, there's something that in the past would have tempted you to resent, watch it, let it pass. You understand? It's like if you're passing by something that's tempting to eat, some chocolate or potato chips or some sugary drink or something, and there it is, and it's so tempting, a candy bar. Let it pass. You don't have to indulge it. So, do you understand? In that little moment, you indulge the resentment. You think you're really living, but you're actually really dying. Do you understand? Instead, let it pass. Feel in that moment, then feel like you're dying. Feel like they called you a jerk, and you bear the pain, and you feel like you want to hate them. You want to get even with them. You want to say something to them, but instead you let that pass. It feels like you're dying, but you're actually living. That's the way to be human. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Viktor Frankl, the famous Holocaust survivor, said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. You see, resentment is actually the emotion of destiny, the mechanism of destiny. You have a choice. In the Old Testament, God said, I put before you life and death. Choose wisely. So there it is. In that space between stimulus and response, you have a choice. You can resent. You can hate. You can succumb to the temptation to become like that which you hate. Or you can stand back and let it pass. It's like passing by a candy bar. There it is. You see it. You can smell the chocolate, but you let it pass. You don't have to indulge. But look, if you indulge the resentment, if you fall for the temptation to become like what you hate, then that will be your destiny. Your destiny will be to deteriorate and eventually to die. But if you stand back and don't indulge, and then you'll feel a little bit of pain, a little bit of suffering. It's going to feel like you're dying. You deny yourself the luxury of resenting, of hating. You let it pass. You let the temptation pass. Then, in that moment, you feel like you're denying yourself something which is your due, your right. But actually, what you're doing is you're actually living. You feel like you're dying, but you're actually choosing life. But if you indulge the resentment, then it's the destiny of deterioration, and death. So, get the little meditation, learn to stand back and watch. Watch. Be aware. And when that moment arises, when in the past you would have resented someone, now you watch. You let the moment pass and you're safe. And thereby, you have chosen life. You have willingly let go of the animal life of pride, the emotions of love and hate and resentment and bitterness and anger and jealousy and all of those. You let them pass, and instead you choose true life, which comes from God, as a reward for obeying Him. Now you understand what resentment is. Let it pass.